until God sent rain. Of course, we know that Elijah had spoke to Ahab and said, Ahab, since you think that you all are in control of stuff, that you partner with this pagan god, this god of fertility, this god of rain, this god of agriculture, he said, it's not going to rain until I say so. And we saw how God sustained them. And we saw a miracle that the little handful of meal and oil changed to a barrel of meal and fed them for nearly 3 years. That's a miracle.
Amen.
But there's tension in the text. The tension is that they go from one situation to another. Amen.
Amen.
They go from a miracle to a disaster. Well, let me walk through the text and I'll hopefully be able to make it a little plain for you. We see here that first and foremost we must understand that God doesn't share his glory with anybody. Amen. The text says in verse 17, and it came to pass after these things. Yeah, after this miracle had taken place, something else happened. Yeah, it says that the son of the woman, the mistress of the house, fell sick, and his sickness was so sore that there was no breath left in him. In other words, the boy died. But let me just say before we talk about his death, let's talk about what God is doing, what his purpose and plan is. First of all, we need to understand that God doesn't like sharing his glory. Amen. He doesn't like anybody trying to pretend like they are doing something that he's already done.
Amen.
In other words, God is saying, you must understand that I'm the power. I have the power to create life. In other words, see, without rain, nothing can grow. Without rain, everything dies. You have no collard greens, you have no okra, you have no black-eyed peas, you have no cabbage, you have no lettuce, you have no vegetables, and then if you don't have wheat and vegetables and grass, then the animals don't grow. So things begin to die, animals begin to die, then people begin to die because of the drought. God wants you to know that he's got power to create life. As a matter of fact, God said, I don't know where you come from with this pagan worshiping Baal that you're trying to serve, but let me tell you, I was the one back in Genesis who spoke everything into existence. And the Bible says in Genesis 1:1, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And as you read through the first chapter of Genesis, it says, and God said, 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 and every time God said, something happened. When God said, water began to separate. When God said, birds began to fly. When God said, grass began to grow. When God said, I'm the one that creates life. Don't get it twisted. Yeah, you around here playing around with little fake phony gods. Perpetrate. God said, okay, since your God is the God of fertility, the God of rain, okay, then I'm gonna make a pronouncement of just, it ain't gonna rain. And if who you say you are, then you make it rain. God know how to get our
attention,
twisted minds straight.
Amen.
Amen. You think you all that, but if it were not for God, baby, you wouldn't even be here. You think it's your education. You think it's your righteousness. You think it's your service. But if God didn't say it, we wouldn't. God has the power
Amen.
to create life. He wanted to make sure that that Jezebel, Ethbel, the widow, Elijah, and everybody knows it. And what's interesting is Jezebel was from Zarephath, a place of dying. Here it is. God said, go ahead, Elijah, to the place of dying, and I'm going to keep you alive. So we look at the text, and he says in verse 18, she said unto Elijah, what have I to do with thee, O man of God? Art thou come unto me to call my sin to remembrance and to slay my son? Let me just say, if you're taking notes, first of all, understand God has the power to create life. But God also has the power to sustain life. He sustained them during a time of drought. And God is the one that's sustaining us right now. Amen. As the choir was singing, I started getting emotional. I had to move a little bit because I realized that I have movement in my legs because of God. I have clapping in my hands because of God. I have speech in my voice because of God. I have hearing in my ears because of God. I have the soundness of mind because of God. Everything that I have on my entire existence is because of God. He has the power to sustain us, even in the midst of calamity, even in the midst of a famine. God can sustain us. Even in the midst of slavery, God can sustain us. Wow. I'm not going to mess with you this morning. Let me move on. I'm just saying, God has the power to keep us, to sustain us, to hold us. And what's interesting in the text, in verse 18, is trouble, calamity, death has come to the widow woman. God, how? Why do you sustain her during a time of drought and the sun, and then you turn right around and let the boy die? I'm glad you asked. Walk with me. The question is good, but the answer is far better. And here we see in the text that the widow woman, like all of us, when trouble comes, the first thing we think, especially when the trouble is at somebody else's address. Oh my God, you must have done did something wrong, that God is mad at you. Ooh, you having all this trouble, bad car accident, children on drugs, think your husband done, somebody done sin. Don't look at me funny. You know that's how we are. As soon as trouble comes to somebody's address, we began to try to rationalize and come up with the reason why they having trouble at their home. Sometimes we have no idea what God is doing in the heavenly realm. We have no idea why trouble comes sometimes. Now we do know that there's consequences for sin. Amen. But God does not chastise us, judge us on every sin we do. Oh, you should have shouted and said, Lord, thank you right there. You miss your shout, Lord. You act like you ain't seen. You act like you ain't did nothing wrong. But I thank God that he does not chastise us. He does not correct every time we sin.
Hallelujah.
Thank you for the grace and mercy. Thank you,
Jesus.
Amen. Keep on living. Amen. And you'll start seasoning some of your conversation with grace.
Amen.
So here, the child is fell sick and have died. And the widow woman goes to the man of God. Have you come to remind me how jacked up, tore up I've been? The lies I've told? How I rolled my eyes and talked about people? Didn't pay my tithe? Didn't come to church? Are you coming to remind me of the sin I did? Folk got to beg me to come to church. Are you coming to remind me how I cussed out Susie last week? Are you coming to remind me that I got drunk and went out and whored around? Are you coming to remind me of the sin I did? You could have saved all of that. Somebody say mercy. Mercy. His goodness, his grace, and his mercy. That we can sit up in here like we have never sinned before. Amen.
Amen.
Have you come to call to remembrance the sin that I've committed? Wow. And he said unto her, give me your son. And he took him out of her bosom, out of her arms, and carried him up into a loft, where he abode and laid him on his own bed. Wow.
Thank you, Lord.
Sometime the pain that God allows in our life is for him to fulfill the purpose that he has for our life. I wish I had a praying church this morning.
Amen.
Sometimes the pain that he allows in our life is to fulfill the purpose that he has for our life. You've heard me quote Dr. E.K. Bailey before, who's in heaven now. I could understand, man, at the zenith of his pastoring and preaching career, one of the most gifted preachers I've ever listened to, developed nasal and throat cancer and died at the pinnacle of his preaching career, pastoring career. And I didn't understand it. But one of the things that he would quote that I thought was deeply profound, he said, and you've heard me say it before, I walked a mile with pleasure. She chatted all the way, but left me none the wiser with all she had to say. I walked a mile with sorrow. Never a word, said she, but all the things I learned when sorrow walked with me. I know metaphorically we say that God is a God of light. But in most cases, when we have found God, it was in dark situations. It was when you were at the end of your rope.
Hallelujah.
You had tried everything you could try, and it seemed as if hope was all gone. And that's when God stepped in. thank God for every pain I've had to experience. I thank Him for every low point. And let me say this, stop judging people.
Hallelujah.
If you see somebody going through something, just pray for them. Pray for them. And don't you be too much in a hurry to try to get them out of their situation.
Amen.
You missed that. Sometimes God has them in a cocoon, developing their wings. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up like wings of eagles. They shall run. They shall walk. You pray for them.
Thank you, Lord. Yes, God.
God doesn't waste anything. It's for our good and it's for His glory. What's interesting in the text is that here they go from a mountaintop experience of God providing for them during a drought. But when you watch the text closely, the man of God takes the boy up to his bedroom, lays him on the bed, and he prays 3 times. Is that in your Bible? He says, "Oh Lord, my God. Oh Lord, my God. Oh Lord, let this child live. Put breath back in his body."
Yes, Lord.
You need to have a prayer life.
Thank you, Lord.
There's power in prayer. And when you pray to God, be specific about what it is that you want God to do for you. You ain't got time to be cute. You won't have time for your subject and your verb to agree. You can't worry about your mascara and your wig. You got to go ahead and cry out to God. God, have mercy on me. Save my child. Save my spouse. Save my life. Save my job. You got to call on it. Way down from the pit of your gut and your soul. Call on it. And when you call it, you need to be prepared to accept His answer.
Amen.
Oh, I just said something there. You
Amen.
missed it. I just said something there.
Hallelujah.
When you pray to Him, you need to be prepared to accept His answer. God could have said no.
Thank you, Lord.
He did say no before. Can I tell you when He said no?
Yes.
In the Garden of Gethsemane. Father, if there be another way, let this cup pass. It all depends on what His plan is. You got to have some nevertheless in your theology. Some nevertheless in your vocabulary. Father, not my will, but thine will. Thine will. Dr. Tony Evans of Oak Cliff Bible Fellowship, 15,000 members, great congregation, son played in the NFL, daughter starred in War Room, doing a great service for the Lord. But he had to bury his wife. Willing to accept whatever answer God gives. Lord, not my will, thine will be done. Just so happened in our text, God it wasn't his plan that the boy stay dead. God had a different plan. When Elijah prayed, breath, spirit came back into his body.
Yes.
Elijah picked the boy up, took him down to his mother, and said, ma'am, here is your son.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
I heard somebody say, now what was that all about? Glad you asked. Miracle 1, they were fed miraculously for nearly 3 years.
Hallelujah.
Miracle 2, her son got sick and died, and God resurrected him. The teacher would show up when the student is ready. Here it is. In between those two mountaintop experiences, in between those two miracles, there is a depression.
Amen.
You missed it.
Amen.
In between those two mountaintop experiences,
Preach.
there's a valley.
Preach.
Every now and then, if you really want to go to the mountaintop, you may have to come to a valley. Every now and then, you need to be broken. Every now and then, you need to be hopeless. See, well, sometimes he has to break us to make us. You would never know who he is if you don't really go through something where you showed up needed, where you can fix it. There's nothing you can do. You need God to fix it for you. I'm just saying between two mountains, between two peaks, there is a valley. And you need to know that our God is not only the God of the mountaintop, but he's also God down in the valley. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. Why? Because he's with me. Every now and then you got to be thrown into the fire to know that God will put a fireproof suit on you in the midst of a fiery furnace. Do I have a witness up here? Won't God do it? So many times we think that God has left us, that God has forsaken us when we're going through something. But God is right there with you. He said, I'll never leave you, nor will I ever forsake you. I like that about God. Once again, the Israelites didn't learn nothing. There was a time that the Israelites was fighting against the Syrians, and they fought them up in the mountain, and they defeated the Syrians up in the mountain. So the Syrians said, you know what? Their God is the God of the mountains. So what we're going to do, we're going to fight them down in the valley. Surely their God is not the God of the valley. God told the man of God, go tell them, go ahead, fight them down in the valley. And I'm going to show them, not only I'm the God of the mountaintop, I'm also God down in the valley. He's with you. Nobody, even though he slayed me, yet will I trust him. God is the God of all time and everywhere at all times. He is God. And he's God all by himself. And we see not only does he have power to create life, but he also has power to sustain life. And the text suggests to us that he also has power to resurrect life. God can raise up you in your dead situation. Somebody may be feeling a little dead. You may be feeling like there's no life, there's no hope. But God is the God of resurrection. He can take a dead situation and turn it to life. He can take nothing and make something.
Amen.
Amen. He's the creator God. Creatio ex nihilo, meaning he can take nothing and create something. He is God, and he's God all by himself. Well, Mount Zion, I'm done. I just want you to know that you need to be able to see what God sees. And even if you can't see it, trust him.
Amen.
Know that he will never leave you, nor will he ever forsake you. And he has the power to impact our lives, to bring us closer to him. Look what she said. Now I know. Now I know you are a man of God. And what you say is truth. Wow. In other words, she said, now I saw how he fed us. But not only did he feed us, but also he's got the power over life and death. And my brothers and sisters, there's times when you got to go through some stuff or be confronted with some things that people need to see the God in you. They need to see that the God that you serve, quit tripping, quit stumbling, quit wavering, quit doubting. If God be God, then serve him. But if Baal be God, then serve him. God has power to resurrect life. That ain't the only time that he did it. He raised the son of the Shunammite woman. Amen. You remember they were getting ready to, they were burying this boy, and then the enemy went to come up against Israel, and they had to hurry up and drop the coffin. They dropped it in Elisha's grave so that they could get their weapons. And when they dropped the body into Elijah's grave and it hit Elijah's bone, the boy jumped up back to life. I'm just talking about the power of God. You remember the daughter of Jairus? He was raised from the dead. You remember when Jesus was crucified and raised from the dead? And after he was raised from the dead, we saw Pookie that was killed last week. We saw Wee who we buried a month ago. We saw folks get up out of the grave. That's not the first time the Lord did the resurrection. You remember the time when Peter told Tabitha, come forth? Peter said, come. And she came forth. You remember when Lazarus was all bound up in mummy clothes, and he like this, and the Lord said, loose him. And he came out walking. I'm saying he's the power of the resurrection. He's got power, all power, wonder-working power. And I know my Redeemer lives. I know he's a healer. I know he's a way maker. I know he's God. I know he's the truth. I know he's the way. And I know he's the life. And I know that I know he's the King of Kings. He's the Lord of Lords. And I know one of these days he's going to come back again. And when he come back this time, there ain't going to be no whipping him. There won't be no nails in his hand. There won't be no thorns on his head. This time he's coming back as a warrior, as a soldier. Do I have a witness up in here? Do you see what God sees? You need to see what God sees. I'm going to leave you alone. I want to shout, but I'm going to sit down.
Come on, Pastor.
But we're going to check the Bible. The goodness of the Lord.
Praise you.